Shuoluo town is located at the junction of Shu and Dian, surrounded by mountains on three sides east, west, and south, with the Lutu River to the north. It is extremely remote. If you go over the Yunwu mountain to the south, you will enter the mixed residence of the Huozhaodong and the long-necked Miao people in Yunnan. Although there has been a steady stream of merchants passing through the junction of Shu and Dian since ancient times, the town is some distance from the southbound trade route and lacks abundant resources. Usually, apart from a few scattered salt merchants who temporarily rest their feet here, no outsiders disturb the town. The residents live a life like that in a land of idyllic beauty. In the late autumn, a damp, rainy mist hangs over this frontier town. Just when the townspeople are preparing to finish harvesting their rice and repair their houses, they notice a sudden influx of strangers in the town. These people seem to have arrived in the town either in dribs and drabs or all at once overnight. They neither visit relatives nor conduct business. They disappear without a trace in the town's dense network of alleys during the day, as if they have vanished into thin air. However, when night falls, they suddenly emerge, wandering silently through the town like countless nocturnal spirits. The residents cannot even ascertain their number, nor do they know the purpose of their visit to the town. They all feel a vague sense of unease in their hearts. As soon as night falls, they shut their doors and windows, hoping that these strangers will leave as soon as possible. Pei Hang is a special one among these strangers. He carries no luggage and wears a scholar's green robe, appearing gentle and courteous. However, his sleeves are unusually long, reaching down to his knees. He has been in the town for 7 days, yet no one has ever seen his hands. Unlike the others, Pei Hang does not wander around at night but stays in the town's only inn. During the day, he occupies the table by the window on the second floor, orders a bowl of water, and gazes intently outside for the entire day. Apart from water, he never orders anything else in the inn. However, the silver he gives as tips is more than that given by guests who indulge in sumptuous meals. It is no wonder that the innkeeper's face lights up whenever he sees Pei Hang. There are more and more rumors about him in the town. Some say he is waiting for someone, some say he is searching for the heavenly book that the legendary white ape Taoist buried in the town before ascending to heaven. Some say he can see the boudoir of his childhood sweetheart from the window on the second floor. Although the girl no longer lives here, he still comes back every day to gaze at the empty attic. As a result, the waiter sometimes cannot resist the temptation to sneak a peek outside from where Pei Hang sits. But the result is quite disappointing. There is no special scenery outside the window. Across the narrow stone path, there is also a row of ordinary attics. The large bricks are coated with inferior lime, making them look like the heavy makeup on the face of a low-class prostitute. A row of black tiles stretches densely along the eaves, with rain streaks outlined on their edges, extending all the way to the stone slabs in front of the thresholds. It had rained heavily last night, and the weather is chilly in the late afternoon today. The air is filled with the scent of decaying plants and animals. There are still a few scattered guests in the inn, drinking and making a lot of noise. A very faint sobbing comes from the corner of the room. Amidst the noise of the dice game and toasts, this sobbing is barely noticeable, resembling the sound of a cat. A sharp, eagle-like gleam appears in Pei Hang's empty eyes, firmly fixed on the counter in front of him. The town is rich in locust wood, and the ordinary families in the town use wooden stumps and a thick board to make their furniture. However, the counter here is different. It is made from an upside-down, extremely large stone mortar, looking clumsy and ancient. The surface is covered with a thick wooden board, 2/3 of which has turned black with oil. Next to the counter, a girl of about 12 or 13 years old sits on the cold ground, leaning against the stone mortar. She wears a torn straw hat pulled down low, revealing a few strands of dry, yellow hair. She is sobbing quietly. It's not cold, but she tightly wraps herself in a man's linen shirt, revealing a bulky object hidden in her embrace. Pei Hang's face changes. He pushes away the bowl of water in front of him and slowly walks towards the girl. The girl continues to sob as if she hasn't noticed Pei Hang standing in front of her. Pei Hang's face darkens. "What's your name and where are you from?" The girl raises her head slightly, then lowers it again, clinging tightly to the object in her arms, muttering something inaudible. Pei Hang sneers and points to her embrace. "What's this? Show me." The girl curls up, hugging the object tightly, shaking her head. Pei Hang's pale face suddenly turns fierce. His long green sleeves shrink, and a pair of large hands grab the girl's throat. These hands have waxy yellow skin and prominent knuckles, with an extra finger next to each thumb, resembling bird claws. With a slight lift, the girl lets out a muffled groan and is lifted high into the air. The girl's straw hat falls to the ground, revealing a pale, terrified face. Her eyes are large but lifeless, her features very delicate, and her skin has a chalky hue. This is the color of a dying person. She doesn't seem to have long to live. Pei Hang shows no mercy. He grabs the girl's thin shoulders, shakes her hard, and she screams. The object in her embrace falls out. Pei Hang grabs it. It's a doll made of scraps of cloth. The doll looks ordinary, but its head is disproportionately large, almost the size of a real person's, making it look out of proportion on its small body. The oversized face has no features, only a piece of white cloth covering it, soaked with large, dirty water stains. At a glance, it looks like a blooded face. The doll is crudely made, with straw sticking out everywhere, appearing eerie and terrifying in the dim light. Pei Hang throws the girl aside and uses his fingers to carefully knead and tap the doll 3 times. His face shows disappointment. The doll is indeed very old and not made recently. There is no poison on its surface, and it's filled with straw, with no hidden compartments for hiding objects. It seems this is just an ordinary doll. Maybe he's been waiting here for too long and has become overly anxious. Pei Hang laughs at himself, adjusts his sleeves, takes out a few copper coins through his sleeve, and scatters them over the girl. He is about to leave when the girl suddenly widens her eyes in terror, staring at him, and cries, "My dad was killed. So many ants, please help me, help me." Pei Hang's face changes. He knows that any murder case in the town now may be related to the purpose of his visit. He coldly asks, "Who's your dad, and what happened to him?" The girl covers her face and repeats those words without answering. Pei Hang is about to lose his patience when a middle-aged, fat man in silk walks out with a bow and says, "Sir, please calm down." It's the innkeeper, who has come over upon hearing the commotion. Seeing that the girl is insane, Pei Hang cannot get any information from her, so he turns to the innkeeper and asks, "Who is she?" The innkeeper smiles and says, "This girl is not from here. She came to the inn with her father 3 days ago, saying they were fleeing a famine in their hometown and came to this town to seek relatives. However, they found no relatives and had no money, so they had to take refuge in the locust forest to the west of the town. Unfortunately, after a night of rain, her father suddenly fell ill and died, leaving her alone in the town, crying and saying she wants to sell herself to bury her father. Her face is clean, and I originally wanted to buy her as a maid to keep my daughter company. However, she has become somewhat insane from shock. Who would dare to buy her now? I can't drive her away, so she begs for leftover food from the townspeople. I don't know when she sneaked into the inn and disturbed your peace, sir. I'll send someone to throw her out onto the street right away." Xiao'e. Pei Hang waves his hand and says, "Wait." He squats down and gently pats the girl's head. "Tell me, how did your dad die?" The girl lifts her head timidly, her face contorted with a mixture of crying and laughing, as she says, "Sleeping. Dreaming. Ants." Pei Hang frowns. "Did your dad die in his dream?" The little girl nodded, then shook her head. Pei Hang sighed and took out a silver ingot. "I'll buy you. Take me to bury your father," he said. The little girl looked at the silver ingot in disbelief. After a long while, she suddenly snatched it and, holding her doll, stumbled out the door. At the foot of the mountain, a dense stand of locust trees stretched deep into the hills. The damp earth was covered with new mushrooms and creeping insects. Under a huge locust tree stood a half-man-high ant nest. A decaying corpse was hanging above it. The eyes of the corpse had been eaten away, leaving only 2 large blood holes. From time to time, groups of black ants crawled in and out of its nostrils and ears. They held fragments of blood and flesh in their upraised pincers and marched proudly into the ant nest. Even more ants covered his body, desperately burrowing into his wounds. There was not an inch of intact skin on the corpse. The scene was exceedingly. Even Pei Hang couldn't help but slightly change color. The little girl's face broke into an innocent smile as she threw herself at the decaying corpse. "Daddy!" she cried. Pei Hang grabbed her. "Are you crazy? They'll eat you too." He picked up a branch from the ground and struck it along the corpse's head. The corpse was too damaged for Pei Hang to determine anything other than that the deceased was a middle-aged man. Apart from the ant marks all over his body, there were no fatal wounds, and his blood had coagulated, suggesting no signs of poisoning. Pei Hang shook his head and threw away the branch. Perhaps this was just an ordinary refugee who, after days of being exposed to the elements, had suffered a sudden relapse of a chronic illness and died in a rainy night, only to be devoured by ants. Let go of me. The little girl struggled, trying to get close to the corpse. Pei Hang forcibly dragged her back a few steps, took out a porcelain bottle from his bosom, poured out some red powder, and ignited a tinder.